One of the most thrilling moments in chess is sensing that your opponent's king is in danger and you unleash an irresistible attack that results in checkmating the king or winning lots of material. Defending these attacks can be very nerve-wracking, but surviving a dangerous attack can be a great feeling. Let's explore attacking and defending a king in danger. In this position, material is even, and both sides have kings shielded by pawns. Notice that black has doubled rooks putting pressure on the g3 pawn, but that pawn is protected by the f2 pawn and king on h2. White's rook on e1 is putting pressure on the e7 pawn, and it is only protected by black's king. This is a signal to attack that square. With white to move, white begins the attack on the weak e7 square with rook a7. Black's pieces are out of position to protect the e7 pawn, so black needs to advance the e-pawn. If black plays e6, since black's pawn on f7 is pinned by the queen, the e6 pawn is hanging after rook takes e6 check. If black plays king f8, white will simply double rooks on the 7th rank with rook e to e7. Notice all three of white's major pieces attack the weak f7 pawn. Black's position will collapse. If black plays king d8, black's king is stranded in the center and has practically no protection. White's queen swings over to the queenside and continues the assault on black's king with queen a5 check. After king c8, white brings a third piece into the attack with rook e to e7. Now that this rook protects the 7th rank, white is ready to win the game with rook a8 check. After king b8, trying to protect the weak a8 square, can you find a force mate in 2 moves? If you found the decoy tactic rook a8 check, great job. White lures black's queen to a8 after queen takes a8, and since the black queen no longer protects c7, white finishes the attack with queen c7, checkmate. Instead of playing e6, what if black plays e5? Since black's rooks are out of the action on the g-file and cannot help defend the king, white can rip open lines with the powerful sacrifice rook takes e5 check. If black doesn't accept the sacrifice and moves the king to d8, white will simply double rooks on the 7th rank, when black's complete lack of king safety will decide the game. After d takes e5 and queen takes e5 check, notice queen e6 loses to queen b8 check with checkmate to follow. And after king d8, white finishes the attack with queen b8 check, forcing queen to c8, and queen d6 check, with checkmate on the next move. Let's take a look at another example. In this position, white has a powerful bishop-queen battery pointing at the h7 square. Black's position looks solid enough, as black has a knight on f6 guarding the h7 square, and that knight is protected by another knight and bishop. Believe it or not, black's king is in terrible danger because white has 2 pieces attacking black's knight on f6, the bishop on g5, and the rook on f1. After bishop takes f6, white removes the first guard of the h7 square and is threatening to play queen takes h7. This forces black to play knight takes f6, adding protection to the vulnerable h7 square, but this defense is short-lived after white delivers the next blow with rook takes f6. White sacrifices the rook in order to destroy black's kingside defenses. Since g takes f6 allows checkmate in 2 moves after queen h7 check, followed by queen h8, black is forced to play bishop takes f6. White now crashes through with queen takes h7 check. And after king f8, white needs to be patient and find the best way to continue the attack. If white rushes with queen h8 check, king e7, white does have a great position after knight d5 check, forking the king and queen. But notice that white's queen is also under attack. When attacking, you should do your best to eliminate your opponent's counterplay and make your task of winning as simple as possible. Let's return to the position after Black played king to f8. After king f8, rather than allowing the king to move to the e7 square after queen h8 check, White has the incredibly powerful move knight d5, attacking the queen and guarding the e7 square. So White is threatening checkmate on the next move with queen h8. Black cannot capture the knight, as it would open up White's rook on the e-file, preventing the king's escape after queen h8 checkmate. Since Black cannot both prevent checkmate and save the queen, Black has a completely lost position. Let's take a look at this position again, but this time it will be Black to move. With White to move, Black's defenses collapsed after Black was unable to protect the h7 square against White's powerful attack. Black could play g6 to block the b1 to h7 diagonal, but that move weakens the dark squares around Black's king. One useful phrase to remember is that when you have a knight on f8, there is no mate. After knight f8, Black's knight protects the key h7 square, and White cannot remove that defender anytime soon. Black's position may be a bit passive, but this is a small price to pay to prevent your opponent's deadly attacking ideas. Let's take a look at another position. In this position, White's king is stuck in the center and is dreaming of soon castling the king to safety on the king side. With Black to play, can you find a way to prevent White's king from castling and keeping it stranded in the center? If you found the pawn sacrifice c3, great job. Black sacrifices a pawn, but opens up the light-squared bishop, trapping White's king in the center of the board. After queen takes c3, how can Black continue the attack? Now that the light squares have been opened around White's king, Black has the powerful move queen g4. Black's queen takes advantage of the pinned knight on e3, threatening checkmate on e2, the unprotected bishop on f4, and is also eyeing the pawn on g2. After queen d2, preventing checkmate on e2, Black has several good choices, including simply winning a bishop on f4. Black can also take advantage of White's pinned knight and play queen takes g2. White's rook on h1 cannot be defended, as after rook f1, the rook may look secure, but it is actually completely hanging after queen takes f1. Checkmate. By sacrificing a small amount of material, Black kept White's king in danger when White's passive pieces were no match for Black's coordinated forces. Let's take a look at one more example together. In this position, White's king is in serious danger. All of Black's pieces are pointing at White's king side, and Black is ready to deliver checkmate on g2. Let's look at some defensive options for White. Since f3 allows bishop takes e3 check, forking the king and rook, the only other pawn move to consider is g3. g3 seriously weakens the light squares around White's king. Black must not be tempted with queen c6, threatening checkmate on the long diagonal, and White does look to be in trouble, but is actually winning a piece after bishop c4 check, king h8, and bishop d5, skewering the queen and bishop. After g3, Black destroys White's weakened kingside with the powerful rook takes e3. Black sacrifices a rook, but after f takes e3 and bishop takes e3 check, Black's two bishops, rook and queen, all working together, overwhelm White's defenses. After rook f2, bishop takes f2 check, and king f1, Black finishes the attack nicely after bishop takes g3 check, discovering the rook's check on White's king. White's king cannot escape to the queen side after bishop f3, because Black has a forced checkmate after rook takes f3 check, king e2, queen e4 check, king d1, and rook f1, checkmate. As we can see, pushing pawns in front of White's king led to disaster. Is the position hopeless for White? Let's take a look at the position more closely. So far, we have only looked at white reacting to black's attack by weakening the kingside with pawn moves. What if white could force a trade of light-squared bishops? That would make white's position easier to defend. Since bishop f3 would simply lose a bishop after bishop takes f3, notice that the g2 pawn is pinned. Can you find another way white can try to force the exchange of light-squared bishops? Try to find an active move for white. If you found bishop c4 check, great job. White attacks black's king, and after king h8, white has the active defensive idea of bishop d5, blocking black's light-squared attack against the king. If black trades bishops, white's king is in far less danger. And after c6, black closes the diagonal, so white can play bishop to c4, preparing to attack black's kingside after bishop d3. Now that you've learned how to attack and defend a king in danger, let's put your skills to the test.